What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to another edition of Just Winging It. This is a very special episode, near and dear to me, as we're going to take you for a little bit of a curveball. This is the first guest we've had on the show that is outside the K-Wings organization, as far as really no affiliation with the K-Wings organization at all. But this individual has worked in the Central Division, will no longer work in the Central Division as he's moving on to bigger and better things. And is a great friend of mine, and it is the first ever voice of the Seattle Kraken, Everett Fitzhugh. Thanks for joining us, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Petey. This is an honor to be on, and anytime I get to chat with you it is a highlight of my day, man. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate this.
It's been a few weeks since the big announcement. Has it hit you officially yet? I mean, do you have the chills still thinking about it? Because as a friend of yours, I have the chills talking about it. But has it really hit you that this is the real deal?
You know, I think it started to. It's now that I've had my first couple days of work and I've gotten my first few assignments out of the way and under my belt, it really is starting to settle in that, man, this is a lifelong dream accomplished. This is something that I've wanted since I was 18 years old, and to work in the NHL. So to be able to do this early in my career is definitely something special. But, these last few weeks, man, have been a lot of fun. A lot of people have reached out to me, and everyone's been so gracious and so nice and so kind. And, it felt like when I joined the ECHL for the first time. And I remember when guys were emailing me and welcoming me, and it had that same feel to it. Very humbling, very, very genuine and sincere. So it's been a really, really fun few weeks so far.
You've done like 300 interviews at this point. I got to imagine there's no rest for the weary, but it reminds me of somebody who won a reality show, and the next thing you know, they're on Oprah, they're on Jimmy Kimmel, they're on you name it, every single late night TV show. And we're just honored to have you. So is there any questions you haven't answered that you want to get those topics out of the way first, just so I don't, step on any toes?
Honestly, man, I feel like I've won the lottery more so than a reality show. I'm the luckiest man in the world right now. But no, listen, there have been a lot of repeat questions, but it's something that, again, I enjoy talking about, because I think anytime that I get to share my path and my story and talk about just how great the organization that I'm going to is, and just how great the organizations I've come from are. I'm always down to pump other people's tires. So you ask away, and I'm gonna take the old Jalen and Jacoby route and just make sure I don't say anything that gets me fired. But other than that, we're good, man. You can ask, fire away.
We wouldn't want to get you in trouble right away. You and I have known each other for 5 years now. We came into the ECHL together. Your first year in Cincinnati was my year in Evansville. And we've luckily kind of this last year reunited, got to see each other a lot more being in the Central Division. There was a few years there where Tulsa and Cincinnati never played. So on behalf of all of us here at the K-Wings, I do want to say congratulations, because as a staff, we were pretty pumped when we saw the news. So from the K-Wings organization, we do want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much, man. And I know that we've played each other so much. It seems like for the last, even before you got to Kazoo, the last few years, every road trip was either to Kalamazoo or Fort Wayne. So I've gotten to know the staffs in the organizations of those two in particular very, very well. So, I mean, you guys as an organization have always been great to me. I've always been appreciative for everything you've done for me. So that really means a lot. And there are a few teams that I'm going to miss the most about this league, and Kalamazoo is definitely one of them.
I want to get to the athletic story, the behind-the-scenes look at how you got hired. That was written by Ryan Clark, who coincidentally we both know. You and Ryan have become good friends over the last several months and years. I've known him for 5 years or so, maybe 6 or 7 years, just because he used to work in Minnesota for a small town paper in Fargo, North Dakota. And reading that article, not to get all soft on you here, but it was emotional to read because it was so awesome to see kind of how this all played out. It's what dreams are made of. I think that's the way I worded it. I even shared it with my dad because he loves that type of thing, reading these stories of somebody achieving their dreams. Can you walk me through, for those who haven't read the article, can you kind of walk me through how this all took place, when this all came about, you becoming the voice of the Seattle Kraken?
Yeah, I mean, it started back in February, BC, but before COVID. And we were. I got an email in my inbox. Ryan Clark had written a wonderful piece about me and my journey for the Athletics Black History Month coverage. And Todd Leiweke, who was the president, who is the CEO, president of the Kraken, came across the article. He read the article, and then he reached out to me. He emailed me and said he was inspired by my story and wanted to learn more about me. And I'll be honest with you, man, when you see Todd Leiweke in the header there, and as a Wild fan, I'm sure you know who he is, as he did a lot with Minnesota, the Wild, and all of that. So when you see a name like that in your email header, when you see an NHL executive reaching out to you, my first thought was, Tito and Painter, our coaching staff, was playing some kind of joke on me. I thought it was spam for a second, but I followed it, and we had a great conversation. We spoke, and he was wondering if I was interested in learning more about the organization, maybe even joining the organization when the time came. So obviously I was very much interested. Well, then COVID hit, but we stayed in touch. And he sent me an email back in May and said that he was still interested in talking to me, and they're still building their staff and wanting to continue that process. So that's when we began the official interview process, late May-ish. So a couple of Zoom calls, a few phone calls, and then a trip out to Seattle later. They gave me the phone call a few days after the 4th of July, and that's when I found out that I was going to the show. I got my dream job. So I guess the whole process started back in February, but when the official interview process started, it went a little bit faster than I expected it to go.
I think another point that stuck out to me in the article was how classy Seattle was, asking your fiance if this is a place you could see herself living. I mean, that's the type of organization you want to work for, right? Is somebody who not only cares about your well-being and your happiness, but that of your fiance. And I love that Shelley wrote Seattle on the mirror. So when you guys got home, it was good vibes, right? Were there tears?
Yeah, and honestly, and honestly, it was, when you're trying to get to the NHL, you're selling yourself to them. And that's what made Seattle so great, is they were trying to sell me on the organization. And I had the mindset of, you guys realize you're the NHL. I'm supposed to be the one that is selling themselves. But no, that was huge for me. The fact that they were just as concerned and just as interested in making her comfortable as they were me. And Todd Leiweke even invited her into the interview and said, this is a family decision. So this is no longer just about Everett. This is about you guys as well. And, her and I, Seattle is going to be our home. We're going to raise kids there. We're going to put down roots. I mean, this is now when people say, where's your hometown? It's going to be Seattle, Washington. So the fact that they were very, very welcoming and concerned and just genuinely wanted her to be happy, I think that was, to me, one of the best parts of this whole experience.
Who are some of the biggest names? You mentioned the support that you've received in the weeks since this announcement. Yeah. I saw so many NHL broadcasters reach out to you. Now they're going to be peers of yours. I saw the owner of the Washington Capitals reached out to you. You've previously done a preseason game with John Walton for the Capitals earlier in your career. Who are some of the biggest names that stick out that have reached out to congratulate you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a lot, and again, you spend your entire life and your entire career, and I know you do this as well, PD. You look up to these guys, these voices, these broadcasters who you've been listening to for the last 10, 15, 20 plus years, and now they're emailing you and texting you. So it's been really cool. As an Oilers fan growing up, when Jack Michaels reached out to me, that was huge, and he's one guy that I look up to quite a bit. Josh Bogorod down in Dallas, and coincidentally, Jack and Josh are the last two ECHL guys that have made the jump directly from the ECHL to the NHL, both of them coming from Alaska. Dan Duva, who was in Vegas, reached out to me. Tim Saunders, the voice of the Flyers, reached out to me. John Weideman from the Chicago Blackhawks reached out to me. Doc Emmerich, Bowling Green Grant, grad, Doc Emmerich. It was really good to hear from a fellow Falcon. I had broadcasters outside of hockey. I had both Baltimore Orioles broadcasters reach out to me. Adam Amin, who is now the new broadcaster for the Chicago Bulls, formerly of ESPN, he's reached out to me. So it's been really, really cool to see all of these voices and all of these personalities who I've looked up to, I've tried to emulate from the hockey media circle. Ray Ferraro, Elliot Friedman, Ansig Carter, David Amber have all sent very nice messages to me as well. So, you get goosebumps, and we have this this no cheering in the press box mentality. But, whenever your heroes and whenever the people that you look up to reach out to you, it's kind of hard not to get a little giddy and to get that little, oh my God, this is really, really cool. So I got those jitters a bit, but it was been really nice to hear from a lot of those guys.
You and I can relate. We've looked up to these guys for as long as we can remember, like you said.
Yeah.
And, for me, being from Minnesota, where there wasn't a hockey team for a while, the North Stars were gone, the Wild hadn't arrived yet. I didn't look up to players or idolize coaches. It was the broadcasters that got me hooked on hockey. It was the Gary Thorns and the Rick Jenneretts and the Doc Emmerichs, some of those names. You mentioned Jack Michaels was a hero of yours, being an Edmonton Oilers fan growing up. When did that dream for you take flight? When was it something that you said, I want to be an NHL?
It was in college when I went to Bowling Green State University. And for me, that is when I found my passion, not only for hockey, professionally, but also broadcasting. I remember doing my first game as a color analyst at BG, and everything about being in the press box, meeting everyone there for the first time, and just the professionalism and everything about that game. I still vividly remember every moment about that game that I did. And I called my mom that night or the next day, and I said, this was a lot of fun, and I'm now going to be putting all of the eggs into the hockey basket. So it was a no-brainer for me when I started doing this in college that I knew that a career in hockey, a career in broadcasting was something that I was interested in doing.
What's the first thing you guys are going to do when you get settled in up in Seattle?
We're going to tour. I mean, neither one of us have spent a whole lot of time there. I've got some family there. But, I was there when I was 8 for about a week. Last year, we went for a day and a half on our road trip. So, I mean, we did a few touristy things, but I think the first thing we're going to do is just take some time and tour the city. I know it's COVID, and I think things are still kind of socially distanced and closed and slowly opening up. But whatever we can do, out there safely, we're going to get out in the town, explore our new city. And, I'm going to see if we can get lost in the woods and go hiking and, check out Mount Rainier and check out all the cool different attractions that they have. So I think just to get accustomed and to get used to our new city, I think that's going to be the very first thing that we try to do. One
of the biggest adjustments right away is going to be the travel in the NHL. You're not going to be like the rest of us anymore, riding along in buses. You're going to be flying charter. So I expect a picture of your first charter meal. And let us know, is that going to be a steak? What are you going to order?
You know what? Honestly, it's going to be a steak, or I might go with the halibut. I don't know. I've actually asked a few of my colleagues that I've known before this, guys who've been in different travel parties, what to expect. And they're like, man, I can't even describe it to you. And it's one of those things where I was actually talking to Ryan Clark the other day, and he kind of gave me a little taste, a little glimpse into what travel in the NHL is like. And some of the things he told me, I was just, are you kidding me? Like, not a chance. Like, I'm used to going to Burdick's in the hotel downtown Kalamazoo, and that's one of my favorite spots on the road. And I'm like, now we're going to be going to Ruth Chris and all these places. So, but no, I'll be sure to send you a picture of that first flight, that first meal, the 3-hour flight down the coast to LA instead of the 20 and a half hours to Allen, Texas.
I appreciate that. You guys don't play. You don't start playing until 2021, 22. So you got a year to kind of get your feet wet, figure out the city, the organization, prepare for the start of the Kraken's first season. What kinds of things are you going to be doing in this year leading up to year one of play?
Yeah, I think within this first year, I'm going to be busier than I think I've ever been in my entire professional career. There's going to be so much content. This organization is really heavy in the content side and getting out in the community. So there's going to be tons of video features telling the story of the Kraken and building up that momentum from when they announced the team until ultimately when they dropped the first puck. So tons of video features. This team is really ingrained in the community, and that's a big focus of theirs. So we're going to be doing a lot of community events, a lot of speaking engagements, obviously working on the broadcasting contracts and deals and things like that. And we have an expansion draft to get ready for. We have an entry draft to get ready for. Hopefully by the time the next season faces off, we'll be back to somewhat normal. So, my plan is to see if I can travel to a few of these cities and get to know other broadcasters and other media people around the league and try to, like you said, get my feet wet and learn. And, it's going to be interesting not having done play-by-play for a full year, more than a year actually, because when you think about it, it'll be March will be 1 year, and then we'll have at least 7 months after that. So, I'm going on a year and a half maybe of no play-by-play. So trying to find ways to stay sharp, but there's going to be no shortage of work, and I'm going to be very, very busy still trying to build this up for the upcoming season.
One of the other awesome accomplishments, a part of this Seattle Kraken adventure you're about to embark on, and it's been well covered, is you are officially the first Black National Hockey League play-by-play man ever. What does it mean when you hear that, to know that you're paving the way, you're blazing these trails, and there are young kids all over this country that are looking up to you?
I'll be honest with you, PD. It took me a while to really grasp it and to really put it in words. It's something that, growing up in Detroit as a sports fan, I didn't have a lot of those positive Black influences in the game of hockey. I got into hockey because of an Oilers game, and I saw Mike Greer and George LaRock and Anson Carter playing. But other than that, I didn't have a whole lot of people to look up to from a media perspective. You had John Saunders, you had David Amber, but that was pretty much it. So, but now for me to be able to help and be a part of that process of bringing along other Black journalists and play-by-play announcers and things like that, I think it's huge. It's the old adage of it takes a village, and you never really intend on setting out to be the first. You never intend on being the trailblazer, as they say. But if you do find yourself in that position, I think you owe it to not only the culture, not only to the sport and that next generation, but I think you also owe it to yourself to take that head on and be that person that you never had. And for me, if I can have that impact on someone that, I didn't think that hockey was for me. I didn't think that as a Black kid growing up in, insert city, USA, I didn't think hockey was for me. If I can be that person and say, yes, there's a place for you in this game, whether you're Black, whether you're white, female, male, gay, straight, doesn't matter. If I can inspire that next generation of fan, I think that's a really huge component of this whole process, because as a sport and as a society, we're trying to embrace our diversity, and we're trying to grow this game in ways that it's never been grown before. So if I can play a little part in that, I think that's huge, for me personally, to be able to say that I can be a part of that.
Very well said. You and I talked about this earlier this summer, how hockey is for everyone has kind of been the initiative for a couple of years, and hockey is trying to really break down these walls of the old boys club that's kind of taken place in the sport for so long. And this summer, obviously, social justice issues have been at the forefront. Systemic racism has been at the forefront in this country, not even related to hockey necessarily, but, blazing these trails and seeing the NHL try to take these steps, like the Hockey Diversity Alliance, which has done great things this summer. Do you think hockey is going down the right path and doing the right things? And how much work is left to be done? Because, we can't honestly sit here and say, hey, we're there. To me, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think we as a sport are on the right path, and obviously there's never enough that can be done. I think there's always more you can do, but I think the start that has been made, the foundation that is starting to get laid here this summer, is a step in the right direction. I've always been a big component and a big fan of, proponent, I should say, of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I understand that people, when you talk about diversity issues, when you talk about racial injustice and things like that, it can be uncomfortable to talk about. And that's all right. But as long as we're okay with feeling uncomfortable and having these conversations and understanding just how important these conversations are. And I think that's the only way that we're going to be able to get to a point where being the first Black NHL broadcaster is no longer a big deal. Being the first female NHL scout is no longer a big deal. You know what I mean? So we're on our way to getting to that point, and it's very unfortunate that it's taken another tragic loss of life, multiple tragic losses of life this summer to shed some light on these things. And when you look at everything going on between the coronavirus and between sports shuttering their doors and all of the police brutality and all of the senseless killings this summer, it's almost like a perfect storm of things that have come together that people are now being forced to talk and to listen and to have these uncomfortable conversations. So as long as we continue to have these conversations and they are positive and they're building towards something, I think we're heading in the right direction. The NHL has started their initiatives over the past couple of years heading in the right direction. So as long as we continue on this path of conversation and understanding, we're going to get to a place we want to be a lot sooner rather than later.
You made a lot of trips to Kalamazoo when you were in Cincinnati, 5 years with the Cyclones, lots of memories, I'm sure, not only with Cincinnati, but just memories coming to Wings Event Center and mingling with the fans. Our fans seem to really love when you came to town because we would always show you up on the video board. You did the dance cam. You know, you filled in for me when I was a sick boy there, bedridden, couldn't even make it to the day, and you filled in for me. What are your favorite memories of Kalamazoo?
You know, I think so. You're gonna laugh, but I think my favorite memory of Kalamazoo was probably the first game that I ever did there. My first year in Cincinnati. Joe Roberts was the broadcaster at the time, and I'd heard so many great things about that barn there and about the old, Colonial League days, the old IHL, UHL, you name it, all the history that was in that building. And then obviously with me having gone to Bowling Green, I've made many trips to K-Zoo before that, playing over at Lawson across town on campus. So, my first game, I don't remember much about it, but I remember just being in that arena for the first time, and it felt like an old-timey hockey barn. So, I just remember that feeling that I got. But other than that, I mean, it had to be the first St. Patrick's Day game when I broke out the green suit for the first time on the road. That was probably one of my favorite memories. For whatever reason, Cincinnati always ends up playing in the colored ice games. So be it the green ice game, the orange ice game, the purple ice game. So all of the pink ice game rather. So all the colored ice games we played in has been a lot of fun for me. And then I think again, all of those games that we've played on Sunday afternoons, usually the back end of a 3-3 and like Sunday in Kalamazoo, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, is the definition of grinding it out in this league. You're in Cincy on a Friday, you're in Fort Wayne on a Saturday, 3 o'clock game on Sunday in Kalamazoo. You're trying to find every ounce of gas left you have in the tank. And, it can be a very difficult place to play. So I just remember all those battles. And then obviously the playoff war we had last year, that was a ton of fun to have been a part of too. So, I enjoyed coming to K-Zoo. I've always enjoyed interacting with the fans, being on the Jumbotron and being able to be myself in Kalamazoo. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to miss it, man. And K-Zoo was one of there's about 3 or 4 towns in this league that I'm really going to miss. And Kalamazoo is one of those towns.
To your point about Sundays and the back end of a 3-3, I remember multiple this past season where you and I texted each other and said, should we even send our notes? Do you even want our times?
Yeah, sometimes it's like, we just played you 6 times last week. Do you even need these? All right, cool. I'll see you in an hour.
You mentioned the St. Patty's Day suit. To me, you're the best dressed man in hockey. And, well, especially when you're in the ECHL, you had the best suits around. And Carrie, my wife, wants to know where I can improve my suit game because my closet's looking pretty bad right about now. So can you give us a secret? Where do you get all these awesome suits?
So honestly, it's all about tailoring, man. My fiance, she has worked at Saks Fifth Avenue for the last 5 years, and she's been, the men's and women's clothing manager. She was the training manager there. So, she was one of the go-to people at Saks. And first time she saw me, we were hooked up and set up by one of our mutual friends. And she was at a Cyclones game once, and our friend was like, that's the guy up there that I was telling you about. And she looks and she was like, oh, that tall guy in the ill-fitting suit up there. So as soon as we started dating, she took all my suits and then had me get them tailored. So honestly, it's all about tailoring, man. You pay an extra 60, 70, $100 to get a good tailor, and you can make that $100 suit look like $1 million. I'm telling you, I've got a few in my closet right now that I didn't spend a whole lot on, but they look like $5,000 Armani suits because I got them tailored just right.
Duly noted. You're a Michigander. You're from the Detroit area. I'm a transplant. I've only been a Michigander for a year. Who are some of your favorite sports teams? I know our fans would love to know. Don't worry if they judge you. They judge me all the time, I'm sure, for being a Twins Minnesota homer. And who's going to be the next Detroit or Michigan sports team to win a championship?
So my favorite sports teams have always been the Tigers, the Lions, the Pistons. I support the Red Wings. Those are my hometown team. But obviously, being an Oilers fan growing up, I am a big fan of the University of Michigan. So I understand all you Spartan dogs out there. Sorry, I'm not sorry. Michigan will come back one of these days. As far as the next Michigan team to win a championship, that's tough, man. Like, we're all of us are in a bad boat right now. I'd like to jump on the Lions bandwagon and just say that, you know what, a couple of bounces here, a couple of, you know what I mean? We may be able to find ourselves in division contention, but I think I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit and I'm going to go the Red Wings simply because the farm system for the Wings is really, really good. And hockey is one of those sports, especially when you're a good team historically, like the Red Wings, you go through those ebbs and flows, but it doesn't bend too long. You know what I mean? So I think the Red Wings have gotten their, they had that 25-year playoff run. I think they got their drought out of their system. So I think now with the draft coming up, couple years from now, they're going to be right back in the playoffs and right back in the championship contention conversations.
You mentioned growing up an Edmonton Oilers fan. What's it going to be like your first trip on the road with the Kraken to Rogers Place, sharing a press box with Jack Michaels, calling a Kraken Oilers game? I can't imagine.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm not going to lie to you. Being able to be under the Gretzky banners and all of the Stanley Cup banners and all those retired jerseys up there, I think it's going to be a lot of fun for me to go to against the team that I've been a fan of for so long. And, you hear all the stories of all the athletes who grew up fans of whatever team. And, yeah, my first game against, the Packers, or my first game against the Red Wings, or whatever the case may be. You always wonder what that's going to be like. So I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited for my first game in Detroit, my hometown. Going back to Detroit, I think more than anything, that's the one that I'm looking forward to is getting to the Motor City for the first time. And I think the only thing that would make that trip, perfect would be if Joe Louis Arena was still there. But other than that, I mean, in front of my family and all of that, I think that's going to be really, really fun too.
At least at Little Caesars Arena, you might be able to get a press pass for your mom to come up there and hang out with you in the press box. Joe Louis Arena, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I've called a couple of games at Joe Louis Arena when I was at Bowling Green, and that press box, man, it is tight. Like I thought the Wings Event Center press box was tight. No, that Joe Louis Arena press box is tight. I had to diet for a couple weeks before I did those games in Detroit to make sure that I fit in there.
Our public address announcer here in Kalamazoo, Joe B., he's another Bowling Green alum, and I know he loves when Cincinnati came to town, so he could come up to the press box and talk your ear off about Bowling Green. You guys have a lot of topics you could share about Bowling Green and Bowling Green hockey. There seems to be a pipeline of Bowling Green broadcasters that have made it. I mean, I don't know what it is, what's in the water out there, but Doc Emmerich, yourself, I believe Evan Pivnik of the Adirondack Thunder in our league is a Bowling Green alum. Am I missing somebody?
Yep. Steve Mears, the broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was a Bowling Green guy. Actually, he was another guy to skip the AHL entirely. He went right from the Borsche Shreveport Mudbugs of the Central Hockey League right up to the New York Islanders and started with the Islanders before he went to the network. So you're right, man. For whatever reason, in the broadcast booth, in the front office, you look at all the GMs and all of the coaches that have come through Bowling Green. It's been a lean program in terms of success on the ice in recent years, or I should say historically in recent years it's coming back, but front office wise in the administrations and whatnot, Bowling Green has been churning out a lot of NHL talent off the ice as well as on the ice. I mean, Ryan Carpenter, along with the likes of Andrew Hammond and Kevin Bieksa and Nelson Emerson, Rob Blake, Brian Holzinger, some of those classic guys from the 90s in the NHL. Joe B. actually was the broadcaster for Bowling Green for our first and only national championship as a school. He was the broadcaster for the team back in the 84 season when they won the NCAA championship that year. So Joe B's got his name etched in a place in Bowling Green history as well.
You and I shared a beer one time in Newport to the Hofbrauhaus, and one of my favorite spots right across from the team hotel. A lot of great spots in Cincinnati. I think we had tacos downtown one time as well. What are you going to miss about – I mean, obviously I'm a food and beverage guy, but what are you going to miss about Cincinnati having spent 5 years there?
I think obviously the food is going to be one thing. I never knew that this town is going to have such good food. I'm right there with you. I mean, there's so many great beers in this town. Like I'm gonna really miss that. But I think more so it's going to be the people. The people of this town are just so genuine. They're so passionate. Even though we share a plaza with the Reds, we're right down the street from the Bengals. You've got a brand new MLS team. You've got 2 D1 basketball schools, a D1 football school right across town. So there's a lot of noise in the area, but the fans, the people still came out and supported the organization, and they accepted myself. And, Cincinnati is always going to have a special place in my heart for me. This was my second home. This is the place I've spent longer than anywhere else except for Bowling Green, Ohio, as an adult. So I met my future wife here. So obviously, Cincinnati means a lot to us too. So, I've told a lot of people that this is a very bittersweet moment. Obviously, I'm excited to get to the NHL and to achieve this goal. But I also know that, I'm going to be leaving behind a ton of great people, a ton of great, things about this city and just the city in general. So I'm hoping I'm always going to have a couch or a spare bedroom to come back to throughout the years. But I'm definitely going to miss Cincinnati.
Well, again, you filled in for me when I was sick back in November, and I greatly appreciate that, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. Of course, you did an awesome job, as always. If you ever get sick in Seattle and you need someone to come fill in for you, I'm a phone call away here in Kalamazoo, so I'll hop on the first bird to the West Coast.
I feel like it's only fair. I scratched your back, now you got to scratch mine. So, listen, I can't make it So, hey, Petey, listen, man, I'm going to see you down for a little first-class treatment for a couple days here in the show. You got this covered? All right, cool. So
It's the same level, right?
yeah, no, same thing.
In all sincerity, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. And, man, I'm looking forward to living vicariously through you the next however many years. I know you're going to kill it up there. So huge congratulations. And again, we're all extremely happy for this big achievement, you reaching your career goal.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And you're going to be right here next to me sooner rather than later, man. Kazoo, they know what they have, but I'm telling you, they're going to lose you one of these days because you've got the same path and you're well on your way, man. And again, it's going to be sooner rather than later. We're going to be colleagues once again in the same league.
Maybe we'll share a beer at a Hofbrau house in an NHL city. That sounds like a good.
I'll take that. We'll go to Columbus and we'll pop over to Cincinnati real quick for a beer for old time's sake.
You take care. Safe travels out to Seattle, and good luck with everything getting off the ground. And I'm looking forward to the expansion draft, and I'm sure you're counting down the days till that first broadcast.
I am.
But looking forward to listening.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Take care, everybody.